thank you everybody for joining us here on this fantastic Friday for the Rossetti and Revizto webinar here, navigating the present and future of architectural design and collaboration. So just going over the quick agenda here, I'll do some talk about some housekeeping here real quick. I'll give a quick introduction, and then we'll do a quick overview of Revizto. I'm just going to briefly touch over that just kind of at a high level. I know our guest speaker today has some great stuff to share with you guys, and I want to make sure he has plenty of time there. And he's going to talk through the present challenges of architects face and the future design collaboration. We'll have some polls that'll come out through the presentation here, and then we'll do some Q&A at the end. So some quick housekeeping. The webinar is being recorded, so if for any reason you have to drop off, you will get the recording there at the end. Make sure you guys feel free to use the chat to engage. If you guys have any questions, you guys can use the Q&A box, or you guys can throw it there in the chat. And David Ray will try to go ahead and get those answered, or if Dan sees that in the chat throughout the webinar, we'll get that answered live if we can. And then keep an eye out for the polls that I had mentioned. The polls just kind of help us gauge who's here and kind of where everyone's at. And then if you guys want to keep up with us on future webinars, you can always follow us at Revizto on LinkedIn, and always peep at the website or socials, and see that information there as well. All right, so just a quick introduction of myself. My name is Vincent Badiata. I am 36 years old, soon to be a dad here within the next 24 to 48 hours. So if I do drop off, that's why. My wife popped open the door and said we have to go to the hospital right now, which means I will take off and David will take over. But I've been in the industry now for a couple of years. Prior to that, I was on the automotive service side with Mercedes-Benz for 10 years. And then prior to that, I served in the U.S. Navy, dealing with some aviation launch and recovery. Did a couple tours there on the USS Enterprise. So that's a little bit about me. I'll let David Ray go ahead and introduce himself.
Yeah, hi everyone, David Ray from Revizto here. One of the implementation managers. Revizto has a whole team of implementation peoples with different backgrounds to help you guys get set up with Revizto and help deploy Revizto both internally and externally. I come to Revizto with a background of architecture and typically jump in with our more design-focused clients. So I have the honor of working with folks like Dan Wells and Rossetti Architects. And yeah, very excited to see what Dan has to share today.
Very cool. All right, and then our guest speaker today is Dan Wells, design lead from Rossetti. I'll let him introduce himself here shortly. But I've had the pleasure of working with Dan now for a little over a year. Fantastic, and really knows his stuff. So excited to see his stuff as well. So here's our first poll. How familiar are you with Revizto? Have seen Revizto but haven't used it. I'm a beginner user, intermediate, advanced, or I've never used it or seen Revizto. Give you guys a few minutes to go ahead and answer some of those.
Awesome. Vince, are you able to see the results?
I am. Looks like I have seen Revizto but haven't used it before. Looks like 32%. I'm a beginner, so 12%. Intermediate or advanced, 35%. All right, so we got some users in the room. Or I've never seen or used it, so 25. So it looks like, or 21, sorry. It looks like it's kind of a split bag there.
The full gamut, looks like.
Yeah, awesome. Good stuff. All right. So moving on here. Just a quick touch on what Revizto is. It's always a good question. What is Revizto? We are an integrated collaboration platform. And it seems that Revizto has really become, that multi-dimensional tool that really helps create that culture of true cross-team collaboration, really providing that single source of truth for all design and construction project stakeholders, for any skill level, for any location, on any device, and you can easily access, all of the 2D drawings, all your 3D models, reality capture data, issue management, have your have your communication at your fingertips, and then as well as all your class management as well, and dashboards and reports for tracking progress. And one of the nice pieces is all of that lives in one single space. It's not an ecosystem or a bunch of different modules or anything like that. So it doesn't matter whether you're on the MEP side or design side or from the contractor or owner standpoint, everybody can be inside of Revizto and bring their information in there and be able to communicate on that fairly easily. So that's one of the nice pieces about Revizto there. So you can run it all the way through early design, all the way through closeout there. So we have all the necessary workflows there, like I talked about with accessibility. Obviously, we're available on the PC, but we are available on iPads, tablets, iPhones, Droids. Do have some VR capabilities there. We did just release AR. No, you don't have to have internet to be able to use this, so you can use this out there in those remote areas. And then going back to that single source of truth. One of the other nice pieces is that Revizto allows you to really track that information efficiently, and have that accountability piece. So especially those on design build projects, it really allows the architect and GC to really be able to work closely together, and monitor that information as it goes through in the project life cycle there. So we'll kind of move on here. I've always really liked this slide, data flow efficiencies. With the ability to be able to bring in all those drawings, models, markups, issue tracking, reporting all in the same place. There's a big use case for everybody on the project, and it really helps the overall data communication transparency, and really just creates a more efficient and product workflows on the project. So again, it doesn't matter if you're, on the project management side, if you're a site superintendent trying to do a walkthrough or something, or trying to communicate from VDC to prefab to field, or design team to owner, everybody can bring in their type of information of what they want to see into Revizto in that one space, and be able to communicate that information easily. Just going over some of the compatibility and integrations here. So we do integrate with most of the major authoring tools there: CAD, AutoCAD, Civil 3D, Vectorworks, SketchUp, Rhino, Advanced Steel, Tekla, all of those. And we do support most of the major file formats as well: DWF, FBX, IFCs, OBJs, RVTs, PDFs, all the recap files, LAS. And then some of the document management integrations as well: BIM 360, ACC, Box, SharePoint, ACC, Procore Docs, and integrate with Procore RFI. So if you need to elevate an RFI to Revizto, you can do that through Procore as well. Moving on here. So I'm now going to go ahead and turn it over to Rossetti. But before I do, I did want to pause really quick. David, Ray, was there anything that I missed that you think you might want to add to that touch real quick before we go forward?
No, I thought that was pretty comprehensive, Vince. I guess on your last slide, I mean, talking about some of the plugins and things like that, I think Revizto does a pretty good job of just making the transition and aggregating, or absorbing a lot of our design files we see or work with into that coordination environment. Yeah, does a pretty good job and very seamless. It kind of, some platforms, right, you have to go from Revit to a different file format, then import. So being that we're a direct plug-in to a lot of these tools, I think is pretty powerful.
Right.
Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Pretty cool. All right. Yeah, I'll turn it over to Dan if you want to go ahead and share your screen there.
Yep, I think I gotta wait for you to stop.
All right, go ahead.
All right, can you see that?
Gotcha.
All right, well, let's do this. Thank you, Vince. Thank you, David. Thank you, Stephanie. Appreciate this opportunity to come and kind of share a little bit of our knowledge and kind of what things we're doing to push our industry forward. Hit the next slide here. Come on. So what I want to talk about today, just a quick high level overview. I just want to share a little bit about myself. I think my history, my perspective, what I have seen in my experience thus far in my career, and I just talk through, I think, some of the challenges that we face today with all this technology and the advancements that have happened. And I think as a part of this, like, talk about what this means for the future. So first, a little bit about myself. Just not wanting to advance my slides. I think I have everything I could want right here. I have an amazing partner to live life with. Two crazy boys keep me young and keep me honest, and just a sense of adventure that my dad instilled in me. You can see these pictures here from a recent camping trip we did this past winter, keeping a tradition alive to do winter camp, and being able to take my boys and be able to go with my dad as well. And even though we didn't have a girl, we did have a girl just with some fur on her. So that's our husky that's now 8 years old, and her name is Samus for any of you gamers out there. So I'm coming to you from Rossetti. We are in Detroit. We're a sports global and Detroit local. And basically what that means is we are a sports architecture firm throughout the country, throughout the world. But in Detroit, we do a lot of other things too. We're really part of all the revitalization that's happening here, and a lot of other project types and things like that in Detroit. But outside Detroit, we focus mainly on sports. So we've been established. We've been around over 50 years. We've done all different sports teams, disciplines. And we have kind of 4 studios: architecture, urban design, interiors, and analytics. We've done projects like the Daytona Speedway down in Florida that are with a grandstand that's over a mile long. Sorry, that's sliding forward. We had to actually take into account the curvature of the earth when we were working on this. And we've done projects as small as this project for the downtown boxing gym here in Detroit. Let me pause this. It's doing an automatic slides. So I want to talk about a few projects I have done for Rossetti, just from my experience to date so far. And I'm going to stop this. This is driving me insane. One second. Let me pause for a minute, guys. I apologize.
No worries.
We're going to share. We're going to try something else. We'll try this. I hate to do this, but this is where we're at. So, I've had opportunity to work on a lot of cool, complicated projects here. This is a project, a stadium for the Ottawa Senators up in Ottawa, and cool project where we basically took out the existing suites and opened up a club to the bowl, which presented a lot of challenges. We got smoke evacuation systems. We have blackout conditions for when they get a goal, things like that. A lot of different dynamics, and so had the opportunity to work on this and just presented with many challenges here at our office. It's just a lot of different design challenges that we've seen and experienced as an office. I've also had a chance to work on some collegiate sports work. And then most notably, I've had the chance to work on a very iconic building of Lambeau Field up in Green Bay, where the Packers play, and doing a lot of renovations there for the concourses and so forth. We've also had a lot of involvement these past years down in Florida at the Hard Rock Stadium on many levels. We have done some renovations within the stadium itself. We've also relocated the Miami Open tournament to this campus. And we didn't stop there. We continued on. We did a new training center facility for them. And then why not? We put an F1 track on the same site. So a lot of things there that we've had opportunities to work on. More recently, I've done some work for the Jacksonville Jaguars and a new training facility for them. And we really implemented Revizto a lot on that project as an example. And there's several slides I have to kind of walk through. I think that kind of uses this as a case example. And then I've also had an opportunity to work I do a lot of work out in New York at the US Open campus in Queens. And I also have a little bit more, some real examples I wanted to kind of show and bring forth through Revizto today there as well. So this is Armstrong Stadium, and then the main stadium of Arthur Ashe Stadium there as well. So just trying to show, like, as Office Rossetti, I think we do a lot of cool work, a lot of cool projects. So I think we have some perspective, and we are faced with many challenges of how we deliver these things, deliver these projects, and kind of get through these timelines. There's been a lot of things that we face, but so from there, I'm gonna kind of step back. I'm gonna get a drink. I kind of want to give a little bit of history about myself. I think where I've come to date before coming to Rossetti. And I was thinking about this idea that I kind of am bridging two worlds. And I have these slides put together. I think they're not very descriptive, but I like Transformers, I like Star Wars, anyone that can recognize the Yavin 4. But I put this next slide together, I think, to me, illustrate it a little bit better. And it's this idea that, I guess, a lot's happened, I think, in our industry in the last 25 years. And so I'm dating myself, but I went to graduated school early 2000s, worked at a small firm for about 7-8 years before starting at Rossetti. And if you kind of look at that timeline that we experienced, BIM, if you've looked at it, I mean, there's been some things that have happened prior to 2000, but really, I think BIM has really taken off and been the main focus really is since 2000. So in these last 25 years, and what else has happened? I mean, Revit has come out and then got bought by Autodesk 2002, Navisworks in 2007. I will say, as an office, our office, Rossetti, we made the switch and pivoted to Revit and Navisworks back in about 2009, 2010 range, away from CAD and line work, trying to get in more into building modeling. And then even as we're talking about here, we got Revizto in 2012. And furthermore, as we try to work through these new methods of drawing models and versus drawing, just our blueprints and 2D drawings, we also have BIM 360 and ACC, some of these things that now allow us to share these models live. But again, these only last 6 years, 3 years, BIM 360 and ACC. So there's been a lot of developments, a lot of changes that we've experienced. And what I think is interesting is everything kind of takes a lag a little bit. I would say my first firm I was at, we were doing things a more traditional method. I didn't learn building information modeling. I didn't use Revit until I started at Rossetti. So I've had the kind of training. I was trained by the old school, I guess you could say, right? Using CAD, using two-dimensional drawings, having to communicate and illustrate all our ideas more traditional methods. We didn't have models. We didn't have things to visualize and run around those things. We had to solve them and work through it. But on the same note, I'm young enough where all this new software is coming out. I'm not getting to a spot where some staff and some people as you get through your career, some of the technology gets away from you and you're kind of more in management, and so you drop off. But I'm kind of still in that spot where I'm still in the trenches. I'm still doing the work. I'm still carrying out the projects and in the drawings. So I've been able to kind of adopt all the things with Revit and technology and trying to push that forward without forgetting the things that we've done in the past. So just as kind of a few examples of just things that I've experienced. Like, I don't know if anyone here has run blueprints. I mean, my first job, I did some blueprints, and I don't think anyone does these anymore, but I mean, there's a layer to this. Like when blueprints were printed, were done, you didn't run some blueprints and then the next day you ran a few more. Like the project was more at a complete or finalized state. But I feel like now with timeline speed, we're constantly issuing drawings, constantly issuing progress, things like that. So there's a lesson we can learn from this, but I have had experience with this. Some of the other things that I've experienced and learned from, and I like to look back, is like red lines. Like we used to get out of school, some of the first things that interns and young staff were doing was picking up red lines. That's how we learned. That's how we were kind of brought into the career and into the industry. And also as part of that, I remember all the issues that we got when I got a set of red lines and I had to pick those up. I would go through and I was taught to highlight those. So then when I brought those comments back to my director or my design manager, here's the new drawings, updated drawings, and here's the markups you gave me, all highlighted, all worked through. So there was at least some certainty that things were picked up, or hey, this isn't highlighted, so what happened here? And there might be some discussion. Those markups, those issues that don't fall off the radar like I feel like they sometimes do as technology and things have progressed. And then the other thing to kind of think through is, I don't know how many of us have actually built projects, have built from 2D documents. We're taking the plans, we're extruding lines down, creating elevations, sections, things like some of the methods. You can almost ask, like, how do we do it back then, right? How do we solve these issues, or how do we discover the 3D problems? But there was a lot more, I think, experience used, right, to try to understand, illustrate, and visualize these things. But it was definitely a learning curve. It was hard to explain these things. But on the flip side, now that we have these 3D models and all this information, do we still have problems building buildings? We still are faced with many challenges. There's still, it's not like it's solved all our issues. It's just presented new ones. It's solved some things, but it's presented new problems. So just to kind of bring it back to here. So I think, yeah, I've kind of lived, as my perspective, my experience, I've kind of lived in between, I think, this transition zone. I've been taught by some of the people that are more old school, that have experience of years and years of architecture, but being able to adapt to all this new technology and figure out, well, how can we use this without losing sight of kind of the methods we had before. So let's pause here, and we're going to try to do a quick poll. So what I was going to talk through today is some of the challenges we're facing today. And when I wanted to kind of just check with you guys to see which one like resonates with you most. I think maybe you might have all these things, these issues you might see, but what's kind of the top one that you really feel like you're facing today? So like reviewing and navigating the models, or dealing with the drawings, like they're out to date, they're old, or trying to find the latest and greatest drawing and how to get that lined up with the model. Third, like tracking all of our issues, markups, questions, field verification, all the issues and things that we're doing that's going to then end up in the drawings when we're all done. And then same thing, ironically, we're talking about a new software program here, but like we're constantly faced with lots of software. So how can we try to maybe limit or reorganize ourselves to get back into less software? So, okay. All right, so seeing about 7% about reviewing and navigating the models, about 27% dealing with the drawings that are out of date and not aligned, and then 57%, so a lot of percentage about tracking design markups, questions, field verification, things like that. A high percentage you, and then only 10% for reducing the number of design software. So I guess a lot of people like working in many programs. So, okay. Before I continue on, I guess, Dave, is there any questions I haven't missed to date? If you want to touch base, or we'll just keep going? Vince?
None so far, Dan.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, let's keep it rolling. This is good.
Okay. All right. So so I'm going to talk through today, I think, is kind of talk about all the challenges we face today. And I'm going to kind of slide to the next slide. I tried to kind of reorganize this, I think, into these kind of groups. So we talked about like, how do we easily navigate the drawings and 3D models? Less on people's priority list here. Drawings, with how fast projects have become. Is the drawing you're looking at current? I mean, I think it's constantly, so then we'll talk through here some ideas. So drawings that come from a 3D model, we still have issues. They're still clashing. They're not aligning. So there's still some disconnects that we're trying to work through. Ways to compare past iterations, and then going into the markups, questions, ideas. I feel like this item could be as long as we want it to be. Just all the issues, all the things that surround, all the things we're trying to do with documenting and navigating all of the design issues that we're trying to work with, within our own firms as architects, with engineers, with our contractors, with the owner, just trying to keep track of all that and keep a good workflow. As part of that is like, I miss sketching. So I want to talk through a bit. I feel like some of that is, as all this technology is advanced, I love trying to bring sketching back. I want to talk about markups. Do they truly get resolved, right? That yellow highlighting, there are ways to do that, to try to get that certainty that those things are getting closed out, and having less items fall through the cracks, and trying to keep those items on everyone's radar. And then lastly, we'll just quickly touch base on a few things about reducing design softwares. So one of the big things that, you know, I feel like my role I've experienced a lot is as I'm onboarding team members a lot, I'm always introducing the project to a team member, either it's internally as, you know, architectural staff, you know, bringing on board, or engineering staff, you know, trying to bring up different disciplines as they're onboarding, kind of in their projects blowing up or expanding. I mean, and also, you know, vendors, different, you know, people working. So a lot of time I'm spending trying to explain a model, explain the drawings, get people up to speed. And so one thing I've noticed so much about is, you know, I can show this 2D section here. This is a section through the field house of the Jaguars facility. You know, I can review this with a coach. A lot of people, I can try to illustrate what this is. And I feel like this is how we have done things for so long. But how much better is it by the simple of a button? I can just simply overlay this onto a model. I think, you know, there's so much more information you can see here, and it brings up questions and other issues that it helps bring these things to the table, like, right, the ducts layout, the fans that are here, things that they might not have seen or might not have picked up in a drawing. All of a sudden they see it three-dimensionally. The pad height, there's just a lot more depth and things that we can pick up from this kind of experience. And I think trying to help people understand how people visualize buildings and your project and your design, being able to do this has been countless. And I've not been able to find a way to link those two together where I'm going between drawings and model, and how much more, you know, is that there less hiccups or less, oh, you know, things are getting built and all of a sudden we're walking around with the owner and people, I didn't know it was going to look like that, or I didn't understand this. But I feel like we're helping be able to draw the connections between what our intent is, what our design is, to what actually shows up here. You know, and I'm going to try this. We might pivot from this. I was going to shift with some of my presentation, and actually I don't have to, this will be easier. Be able to kind of go back and forth a little bit between Revizto and my presentation to show this. So here's an example. You know, it's the current project I'm working on with is a renovation to Arthur Ashe Stadium. And so right here, quickly, I can see the model and I can walk around it. I mean, just like most softwares that we have, Navisworks, things like that, but it's very quick. I can navigate and understand what's going on and show a client what's going on. This is everything that's in red is what we're demolishing or what we're proposing to demolish. Or I can switch to an example of, you know, a section where we're revising the entire seating bowl within this project, and I can talk through a 2D section and have some explanation of where things are at, but then I can be able to click this icon and then be able to overlay this onto the 3D model. I think very quickly can give someone who doesn't understand this space what is going on a lot further than just a simple 2D drawing. And I mean, I've queued up a few of these things to try to make it a little faster for me to get to it, but so often I'm able to, on the fly in meetings, you know, pivot, or if I need to review something that I wasn't preparing, I have all these drawings and model at my fingertips to kind of be able to present and walk through and show. And, you know, we can compare this to, we're talking about, this is what the demo scope is going to be. And then this is, you know, what it's going to look like when it's all said and done. So I can kind of show different phases, different things like that pretty easily. I can compare this 2D section to the 3D of what we're proposing. And, you know, right now we can see this, there's a lot of scope still showing up because we're in the middle of moving things around. This is in progress, but this is the latest and greatest. This was updated this morning. So continuing on, so what about drawings? So we talked about navigating the model. What about drawings? So move this screen. I don't know if that's blocking you guys. I don't know if you guys have experienced this. You know, we get emails, we get file names with comments to and copy and all that. I mean, we're constantly chasing drawings. We get PDFs made all the time, and I think as we've progressing, as we moved on from blueprints and even we're constantly making PDFs, we're constantly drawing, and be able to show what's current is very difficult. I don't know if you guys resonate with this. I very often like being in some kind of coordination meeting or somewhere, and you kind of have to stop the meeting and kind of say, listen, the drawing you're looking at is too old. Like we're about to spend, you know, all this time talking through these issues, but we're looking at an old drawing. So I can't tell you how many times that's happened to me these last few years as we just move faster and faster. So to be able to have a drawings that are current and up to date. So this is an example of showing how we get all of our plans, all of our models are exported either every night or every morning, sometimes early morning, so that we can, the entire design team and ownership and everyone can see drawings and model current as it is. And as we can develop it and see where the issues are. I want to see the issues. I want to see the conflicts so we can start to resolve those things. I don't want to have a team member work for a week, you know, and be working towards an old drawing, an old model, and they realize things are not up to date. Next thing I want to talk through about is kind of drawing and model validation, something I kind of coined. And it's this concept of not only can we overlay some of those sections or those big drawings over the model to see where we're at, but we can do this at a level, to be able to do this at a detail level is vastly helpful. So this is an example of, right, as a project develops, as we get into the details, we start to work things out, and we're like, you know what, this parapet height, this gutter depth, or whatever this is, it needs to be adjusted. It doesn't work as we kind of flesh out the details. But you know, and what's going to be contract? It's the detail, right? That's what shows up on the contract drawings. But you know, some people that still have gotten up to speed that these elevations, or sorry, this model that's in the background, that's what the elevations are being produced off. That's what our consultants are seeing. You know, it's very hard that, not typical that our consultant is looking at this detail on our sheets, right? They're looking, their model, our model is linked into their model. They can see where things are at. So they're going to start to make assumptions because some of these things are not aligned. And we need to be working towards making these two align. You know, it's not the fact that this is going to happen, right? This is going to issue as we evolve and iterate design. There's going to be, these two things are gonna change, but we got to continue to kind of work through to make sure the two things line up. Otherwise, this could potentially be you know, RFIs and potential change orders. You know, a similar situation like this, as an example, this is a load bearing wall in the field house, and the location of it, when the details got vetted out, it was like, you know what, we're adding these other components and something else happened. We want to move this wall out, but guess what? It doesn't line up with the wall and the model. And so where's that footing located? Most likely our structural engineer is looking at the wall in our model and putting the footing underneath it. So this could have been a potential issue, but just the ability to be able to overlay these very quickly, kind of back check and see where these issues are. As you know, I kind of supervise other staff that are working on these things. I can see where these issues might arise. You know, because I mean, if we take that wall up to where it meets the roof, where it meets this polycarbonate exterior wall system, you know, there's going to be issues. There's going to be flashing issues, things like that. If we don't resolve this now, if it continues this way and this wall gets built in the wrong location, or per the detail, I mean, there's just potential issues that we're going to deal with down the road. I'm going to come back to this in a minute, but just that ability to be able to see how those two things align is, I think, vastly very powerful, and something that is very much a challenge I think we've faced these last several years. So talk through, let's do this comparing past iterations. I think this could be a powerful scenario. Let's look at, pull up a drawing for this. Having the ability to be able to see kind of how things have gone, where things have been, and any discussions like that. So with that issue of all these drawings have been, you know, printed or, you know, exported daily, I can look back any dates, and I can start to look back and see how this design has progressed, and I can overlay it, or I can simply kind of look back and forth and slide back and forth where these two drawings may have landed. And again, these kind of things come up in meetings, and to be able to have this information at my fingertips to run through it is very powerful. So I think I'm running. I need to speed up a little bit here. So talk through some markups, questions, ideas, all those kind of that big bucket of things. And this is one of the bigger topics I want to kind of talk through is how do we track all that? You know, a lot of it's sketching, and I want to talk through that, and how do markups get resolved? How do those markups that we do make, do we have any certainty they get resolved? So going through, you know, this was a good example of where the field house met the performance center. There's an expansion joint. There's building systems are completely switching from a pre-engineered metal building to a traditional structural frame building. Lots of issues, you know, in the field we had to work through. So the ability be able to pull up some of these drawings, you know, in the field and sketch on them live with the contractor was very powerful, and just not being able to really do that before, and then being able to then take that kind of back to a room, you know, with the contracting team and kind of further vet that out, further talk through it. Okay, oh, we got an expansion joint that we got to make sure we respect in this blue glazing system, so we can kind of, you know, get everyone at the table, walk through these systems, and then kind of work through a solution before an official RFI is then issued, and we can kind of then button it up and keep the field going. Some examples of field sketching. So this is some of this stuff. Sorry, these are more like sketches from a meeting. So, you know, if you guys remember, Urban Meyer used to had a 1-year stint coaching for the Jaguars, and we had a change of coaching mid design. So as a coach changes, all the subsequent other, you know, coaches usually also follow suit. And so equipment areas and different areas in the building, we had to kind of pivot. We had a new staff to kind of review the project while we were in construction. And so we were reviewing all these spaces to be able to, and so we had the advantage of running through these spaces in the model, showing them this is what you got, and then, okay, no, I need this here, I want to move these things here. So to be able to on the fly talk through the kind of casework in these examples, what kind of casework, how they're managing towels and all the nuances with all the player amenities that they have, to do that live was very powerful. So this example, so to bring back this idea of, you know, the model and the 2D drawings weren't lining up. They also have the ability of, when that markup is created, we could then have the iteration, that back and forth, and this issue will not get closed until I see it get done like this. And so this is an example of how that was gone back and forth, and when we can see when that issue was closed out in Revizto, that we could see that the model and the details did align. Another example, bringing back up this wall example, you know, this got assigned to the team that was working on it and developed, and then we were able to have certainty that actually did get picked up. It's not something that fell off the radar. I mean, I can't tell you, I feel like there's many times over these last 10 years that I've been on projects where it's just things come up on the field, and you kind of, you do a double take. You're like, I swear we talked about this at some point. We had some resolution, but the ability to be able to have certainty that these things do get resolved is very powerful. And then I'm going to just skip through. I'm going to touch on a few examples of markups and stuff. I think that might be a better example. So I'm going to just fly through this last part here about all the new software, right? We're all getting challenged and faced with brand new software programs, and it's like, oh, do I really need to use a new software? Well, I think just something we've started to look at is like, it's like we've tried to figure out solutions for all these challenges we've been talking about. I think we've been trying to work out solutions for that over these last, you know, 5 to 10 years, but to be able to put them all in one spot is where we have found power. And then as a result too, we've been like, well, how do we use this in other ways? And so, for example, during design coordination, we're reviewing the model, we're making markups. Why can't, in a field report, as we're on site seeing field issues, why can't we identify those issues in the same software? I mean, you know, these kind of things too, like being able to identify these issues, and before we even leave site, we can synchronize and sync these up, and the contractor can have these items instead of us coming back, right? Because as soon as I get back from let's say a 1 or 2 day site visit, you know, what am I doing when I get back? Am I doing the field report, and am I doing that first thing? No, I'm usually trying to catch up on RFI submittals and design issues that have happened while I've been gone, right? We've been in the field. And so sometimes those reports, those things, it takes time to get those things put together. So to think that we can, the real issues that we see on site can be identified quickly and get those to the trades as fast as possible. We'll still follow up with a more formal report, you know, documenting % complete, things like that. But that's very powerful to be able to do that. And then the same workflow, I think worked, and we went ahead and used it for punch listing as well. So we didn't have to learn and jump into different software and different things. We're able to do this, and without even having to go back on site. This is a very small example. This is in the locker room, you know, this base that wasn't installed. We can get images posted posted to let us know that these items get resolved, and we can close them out without having to make some of those trips back to site to close them out. So we've had a lot of success on several projects, Miami Dolphins being one of them, the Jaguars project as well, and also all this work we're doing now at the US Open to kind of implement Revizto to solve, I think, some of these challenges that we're facing. I'll zip through. We're pretty close to time. I'll just run through just a few examples to kind of talk through. Ironically, I had to make a kind of a sudden trip yesterday to resolve some things for this project, and just want to show through some of these examples that we've dealt with recently on kind of navigating some of these problems in coordination markup. So here's an example. I'm also going to start with here. Our structural engineer identified a steel beam and said, hey, we're going to have to demo out this existing 3-story wall to put this in. Can we do that? And I was able to respond back to him and say, and we didn't have to meet for this. We were just going back in this past week over this, and I was able to kind of identify, no, this actually this is actually an existing beam that's going to be staying, but you're talking about the new steel. We can probably move that within the existing wall. So from this, I kind of made these comments. I sent it back to him, and then I created 2 new issues and said, hey, why don't we do this? Why don't we move that steel kind of just inside the existing wall so we can keep it, because it's a 3-story wall. It'd be good to keep in this situation. And then this one, I think he's already kind of come through and responded back to me and said, I suggested this, and I think he's already come back and gave me a markup and said, yeah, we can go ahead and do that. So just an example of that being quickly resolved. Another quick example, we were able to load all the existing drawings. This original stadium was done back in the 90s. I'm going to see if it loads here. And so we were able to use that as a platform to kind of pour through the existing drawings. We've been trying to look at this area where we have a split slab, the extents of it, and so we were able to identify these issues and say, hey, I think what we have currently modeled is not correct. Where there's this split slab starts and stops, and that's going to affect some of the renovations we're doing. So, so again, being able to drop this on this issue, and then we can have a dialogue back and forth, all within this software. And then I'll just do these last 2 examples, and then I'll do 3 more. So I was able to jump on site yesterday. We've had some issues in the field where we're reinforcing some of these existing columns. We're going to be pouring concrete around them to kind of support some of the added floors plates that we're doing. And there's a lot of conflicts, a lot of issues that we're having to try to resolve. So I literally was on site working with some of our engineers, even though we've made Revizto available to them, and we've been trying to kind of encourage and push the envelope on this. They had a yellow notepad, writing down issues and taking pictures. But instead, I mean, I was able to drop this pin, and I have these pictures here that I can bring up in any call, and we can talk through what do we need to do to be able to resolve these issues. I don't have to now, take time, because this is just yesterday. I don't need to take time and download my photos and try to get them to someone. It's right when I was there, I was able to basically get this linked out and get this shared with everyone. So for field verification, this is the first project I've done for renovation using Revizto, and it's been very powerful so far to identify things that we need to confirm in field and be able to see those things in the field, take pictures, get some field measures, take some pictures, and be able to relay it back to my team before I'm not even left site, and my team has this. They can start to understand different issues and things that we got to work to and coordinate. So there are some workflows that a new feature that Revizto has had that the typical just within issues is like, a new issue, open issue, in progress, solved and closed. They've released this new workflow, and we've been experimenting with this and how we might kind of identify design markups, like what has happened over the life of a markup, how does that flow through from a designer and get assigned to a person that's going to do that? Is there information they need? How does it get resolved? And is there follow-ups? Just so trying to work through and create this workflow, and that we've been even experimenting with other kind of workflows, field verification, things like that. Some things that we've been exposed to on this project that we haven't before. And then last thing is we've been trying to push and encourage, involvement and promoting this amongst our team. So we have several projects that we're trying to work through not just on an individual level, but as also within our consultant team, and have, you know, work through leaderboards for who's finding the most issues, right? Who's bringing issues, problems that are potentially we're going to have up to the, getting those shaken to the top so we can see them and we can try to solve them. Who's finishing, who's resolving those things, who's got the heaviest workflow, and then to try to encourage, right? This is still new software, right? We're trying to get, some of this is a new workflow. So how do we get people into Revizto, back checking, making sure those items, that whole cycle of items are identified, they're solved, they're closed. How do we make sure that's happening? So just some things here we've been experimenting with to try to get more involvement, engaged, you know, and make it fun, and kind of poke at each other during our consultant calls on who's taking the lead, who's taking this over. So some things like that. So with that, I think I am running over time. So I will wrap up and just thank you for this opportunity to share what we're doing at Rossetti and then our experience thus far. Appreciate it.
Great job, Dan. Always ever impressed to see how many use cases you guys have over there at Rossetti. We did have one question if you have time. So Devin asked a pretty compelling one. Do you use Revizto for design phase constructability reviews prior to the CA phase? If so, how do you manage sheet organization as the set grows from phase to phase?
Yeah, we've been using, I would say the first projects we've used it has been more in design development and continuing forward, right? And we've been trying to experiment with it, using it earlier and earlier during design iterations, and it presents some challenge, right? Just like you're trying to organize a lot of drawing sheets. We have those, you know, if I were to bring this up for this, you know, this stadium project, we have now shifted into design development. So I have all of our consultant drawings, everything that's going to be done, you know, for construction. But if I slide down here, we have kind of our drawings during, we call it visualize during schematic design, and earlier drawings that I can still reference and look back to. So we still have that in last phase. This was an archive. This was kind of at the top of the list. So we did use that and try to work through that as best we could. So we have had success. It's challenging because there's a lot of things moving very fast, right? Once you get a drawing set up kind of in DD, obviously then you have a drawing to kind of work through. You got a drawing to post issues to, that it lends itself a lot better versus earlier in design. Sometimes things are moving around so fast, it's sometimes hard to keep up with. But we have had success trying to implement that and bring it earlier on into earlier phases of design.
Wonderful.
Awesome. Great stuff. All right, let's make sure we got one more poll here, and then we'll continue on into the rest of the Q&A here real quick. All right, so would you like to learn more? Yes, I would like to know more about Revizto. Would like to learn more from Rossetti. I'm already a user customer, or not right now. Give you guys just a couple minutes to fill that out here real fast, and then we'll pop back onto the Q&A here.
Yep, we can move on to the Q&A. We have one question,
Okay.
David, if you want to take over.
Perfect.
The one from Devin, I think we just covered it. Or was there another one?
There's one in the Q&A box in the bottom.
Go, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, yes. Neil asked, which of Revisto's tools or solutions would be recommended for Mac users since there's no native Mac application? Let's see.
It's all you, David.
Those are solutions. Yeah, I mean, Revizto is fully functional on a Mac, Neil. I think the only limitation there is where, you know, we can't use the export, you know, from Revit to Revizto. But really just takes, you know, a Windows machine for that, and then you're able to use kind of the full suite of tools for Mac devices.
Yeah, and then we have another one. Can you view 360 photos or videos in Revizto?
You can, yes. So via the issue tracker, we do accept 360 photos. Oh, videos. I'll take back yes. 360 photos, yes. Videos, not yet. But yeah, great question.
And then Dan, I had a quick question for you. How is the experience then using Revizto, interacting with the clients and owners from that standpoint. That's something that we don't ever hear very often. And I feel like with the jobs that Rossetti does, you might have some insight on that.
Yeah, we've had I think the full gamut. I mean, I think we've had a project where contractor and owner, everyone was really into it, and very much a lot of back and forth. All parties kind of, I feel like, looking at the drawings. The Jaguars project, I feel like the contractor was a little bit more pushed back, and they were kind of using their system and profile. But like in terms of ownership, we couldn't really get them in the Revizto, but they always ran and raved about it. Like they loved how much they could help visualize them and understand the space before than ways that we could communicate before. I'm hopeful on some of the stuff, the new work we're doing, because there's more facility management teams, people I think that would be willing to use it, but it's one of those things too. It's another software to download, and there's some people that just still have that hesitancy. So it's trying to push them and get them over that hurdle. I think we're working to try to do that on this next project.
Sure.
We have another question from the chat. David, if you can see it.
Yes. Do you have synchronizing app for desktop with cloud like OneDrive or Autodesk Connect? Synchronizing app. We do have some integrations. I mean, the export, like moving models and drawings, it's not exactly a live sync, but can be automated. So off hours, typically we see the export run, so models up and drawings update overnight, typically. I don't know if you have any comments there, Dan. But yeah, the other integrations too, we can move drawings from things like Autodesk, ACC, BIM 360 into Revizto via the integration. I don't know if that directly answers your question, but you're welcome.
Thanks. Yeah,
Dan,
most of
what
our
about-
stuff comes from Revit and exports, our nightly exports. Yeah.
Nice.
Dan, what about file size? I know you guys work on some of those large sports projects. Like, how's that been handling that?
Overall, pretty good, I would say. I think this project for tennis project is challenging it because it's a campus, right? There's a campus of buildings, but I can turn those on and off, all these extraneous buildings. It's done pretty well. Yeah. Especially like you saw, we were kind of just that example I pulled up of that stadium. It pulled up very quickly and drew that section. So I think we're able to navigate pretty good size projects very, very easily.
So pretty interesting question too, Dan, from Federico. So he said, I'm curious to know if there is a company template for report stamps tags and how you've organized those following master specs, discipline, internal project organization. And as you went through your presentation, I thought that was interesting too. I started to notice some master format spec division stamps, if I'm not mistaken, and then also discipline based as well. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, we've done, it's been a little bit of we've learned from the projects we've done, right? We've done a lot of things based on spec section for like field reports, punch listing, things like that, because we feel like we want to tie it back to the spec and so we can, from that, we've established kind of these things, and we can copy it into a template. I think based on a recent conference we went to, someone suggested making a kind of Revizto template. So we've been working on some of those things because you can export those things from a project and then kind of make them standardized. So, but from that, we've kind of established early on design items. So kind of more topic based, more like mechanical, electrical, things like that during design, kind of more intuitive. And then we'll jump into spec numbers when we get more into construction and field verification, or sorry, punch listing.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And then Noah asked, maybe this is more for you, Vince, do all users and companies need a license or only a project license? So actually both. We can do a project-based license or on a pool per user or pool basis.
Yep. You got it.
We've had success doing project, like we're only an architecture firm, so many other firms that have more disciplines in house might be able to do that, but we're constantly working with different consultants on different projects. And for us, the biggest thing of this software is about coordination and be able to use it with the entire team. So having a project-based license for us is what helps us then be able to invite, vendors, subs, all parties. Yep.
Let's see.
There's a question about, is there a way, maybe we already kind of touched on this, Devon, about the delineate milestone sets. I guess, so the question, part of this question asked, and you might have asked this before, David, is there a way to delineate milestone sets from SD, DD, CD? I guess I would say we typically, like, I would still manage and issue contractual sets separately, right? I'm not trying to issue a package in this set. I'm just trying to have a way for all of us to have the current drawings, the live drawings that we can work towards. But I would not issue a package through Revizto if it contractually I would want to issue it separately. So that's how we handle it.
Yeah, I would second that. I think maybe not looking at the sets on a per phase basis, but more like how you're managing your markups, right? If you move from SD to DD, you still want to keep those markups intact if you want to go back to those in the issue tracker. But kind of moving into DD, you might want to separate those out. So yeah, great question. And then Chad, Chad asked, do you use Revizto only on large projects or also on small scale projects, Dan?
We have started trying to implement it across the entire office. So for a while, we only did it on a select number of large projects that if I could support using it and doing it, but we have been moving towards trying to implement it and trying to create kind of a workflow that we could use across the office. But it depends. It depends on who leads the project, their comfort level, to want to try to adopt this. I feel like for me, like I've tried to explain here, is that all the issues and challenges I think we faced these last 10, 20 years, like this solves it in one spot. So I feel like I would, but there's definitely hesitancy on some teams and some small teams to implement it.
Sure.
Got it.
All right.
See a question about facility management. I'd have to defer to you guys. I haven't seen it used, but I think it could be very powerful. But
yeah, we do see that from time to time, Noah, and actually one of the newer features in Revizto is a QR code, so pretty helpful for asset tracking.
Awesome. And then the last question we're going to take is from Devon. David, if you can see it.
Sure. It says, asks if can specifications be loaded into Revizto with PDF bookmarks? Would love to be able to review specs and drawings in one program. And I don't know, Dan, do you have any comments there?
that's next on your guys' list to do. So one thing that Revizto doesn't like multiple pages. So it would have to load every single page from the spec, and so that would be so. If there's a way to figure that out, I agree. I that resonates with me. I don't see who saw that question, but yeah, I agree with that. I think it would be powerful to be able to use that, because like to be able to see these things in conjunction, because right now we can't. So
yep, absolutely.
David, it's next on your list.
Yes, yeah, and something we're working towards moving forward is updating the 2D workspace. But yeah, great question.
All right, perfect. Thank you. All right, so here's just some of the contact information here. Again, I'm on the sales side, so there's my contact information there. If you guys need to get a hold of me, or I can get you in touch with whoever is the rep for your area, feel free to reach out there. There's Dan's contact information there. I know he's always very helpful to reach out to. And if you guys have any more of those on the technical side questions, feel free to reach out to David Ray. And you can always find all of us here on LinkedIn. And then if you want to find out more information on Revizto, you can visit us on any of those social platforms there, or revisto.com. And there's a lot of video case study and testimonials there on the YouTube channel, so feel free to check that out. There's a lot of great stuff there. But other than that, thank you guys. We really appreciate it. And thank you, Dan, for the great presentation. That was fantastic. Always exciting seeing what you guys are doing, and great stuff, man. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. Yeah, have a great weekend, everyone.